Live from the offices of Great River Investments in the beautiful city of Burlington, Iowa, this is the Marvin Knows Finances Show. I am your host, Marvin Thompson, your certified financial planner, and joining me today is Joel Jolan of Jolan Media in West Burlington, Iowa, and Todd Slatke, CPA, and my partner at Great River Investments. Thank you for taking a few minutes out of your day to listen in, and for all you listeners on Google Podcasts and Spotify, don't forget to click the subscribe button. If you prefer to see how we make the show come together, please check out our YouTube channel, Marvin Knows Finances, and click subscribe there as well. Just like the last and every time, I have to take care of a little business before we get moving too far forward to please my compliance department. Marvin Thompson is an investment advisor representative and a registered representative with Brokers Financial member SIPC. Opinions expressed in this program do not necessarily reflect those of Brokers Financial. The topics discussed and opinions given are not intended to address the specific needs of any listener. Great River Investments, LLC does not offer legal or tax advice. Listeners are encouraged to discuss their financial needs with the appropriate professionals regarding your individual circumstances. So, gentlemen, welcome today, and thank you for joining me.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Thank you.
So, guys, a couple of days ago, I had a kind of a cool thing happen. I got to speak to 4 classes at the local high school. Mr. Kip, the personal finance teacher over there, invited me over there to talk to the kids about some ideas of some things that they should be doing and so forth in their young adulthood and so forth. And I'll tell you what, I came away from those presentations with a pretty good feeling because, we sometimes hear that this generation is an unmotivated generation and they're not really ambitious to go out and work. And, I would say that maybe does apply to some of the kids that I saw, but the majority of the kids, I was stunned by what they are thinking about, how motivated they are to succeed in life, to be better than the previous generation and so forth. It was almost awe-inspiring. I had one kid, and it kind of cracked me up. But this one kid, I asked people to raise their hands and said, who here has a job? A few kids raised their hands, so I'm going around the room. And I'm like, well, what do you make per month? He's like, well, right now I make about $2,000 a month. I said, $2,000 a month in high school? He's like, yeah. He goes, I work about 80 hours every 2 weeks at the local bowling alley. Wow. And I'm like, unbelievable. Another young lady raises her hand, and she's like, I probably make about $1,500 a month. What do you do? I'm a CNA. Wow. She's a CNA as a senior in high school. So immediately I go to my daughter and I said, okay, how do you become a CNA in high school? She's like, the high school is now offering the CNA course while you're in high school. So you can go out there, and this young lady works 2 or 3 days a week at the local nursing home, and she's pulling down some really good money being a CNA. Wow. Okay. So it was like I said, it was actually pretty awe-inspiring to listen to what these people are doing. And I just wanted to say thank you to Mr. Kip for inviting me. Joe, I think you've had the privilege of speaking on Mr. Kip's classes too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got to speak to his marketing class and just some of the things I'm doing. A lot of kids had some questions. I was able to hand out a book, the kind of branding book that really kind of helped me kind of get some thoughts or thinking about entrepreneurship. And so, yeah, it was great opportunity.
Great. Yep. Mm-hmm. And I was once again, there's a few kids in the class who that's what they want to do. They want to be entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. One young man is going to open up a food truck when he gets out of high school. Mm-hmm. He already knows how to cook. His job right now is he's working in a restaurant somewhere, and he's got family ties. He's going to open up a food truck. Mm-hmm. I'm like, dang, that's pretty good.
Ambitious.
When I was 17 years old, I was sitting in those classes going, darn.
Right. And there's still hope. Look at you now.
You got kids putting business plans together. It's pretty damn believable. Mm-hmm. So no matter what presentation I give or to who I give them to, I always start my presentations out with a little bit of a quiz, okay? And the quiz that I do is I put 3 numbers on the board. This last go around, because these numbers change, was 22,724 and 0. All right. And then, I'll throw out some fun things like, here's $20 if anybody can tell me what these 3 numbers mean and so forth. And, every once in a while somebody gets it. For the most part, they don't. And the numbers, what they represent are 22 million represents the number of millionaires in the United States. 724 represents the number of billionaires in the United States. And 0 represents the current number of trillionaires in the United States. Now, the kids love this, okay? They thought this was pretty cool because we didn't focus on the millionaire number right away. We focused on the trillionaire number right away. And really for the first time in the 20 years of doing these presentations, we have an opportunity in our lifetime to see not one, but possibly two trillionaires. And they love that part, So we're like, who is it going to be? And who do you think the guest is? And what do they do? And stuff like that. And of course, everybody right off the bat, man, boom, we got Elon Musk. Elon Musk owns Tesla, SpaceX, has a boring company, and does a gajillion other things with his time and money. So he was the hands down favorite to become the first trillionaire. And then, of course, Jeff Bezos from Amazon was the second one. Okay. And then we focused on the billionaires. Everybody knows some billionaires. They read about them, they hear about them, what they do, and so forth. And we talk about what are the odds of becoming a billionaire? Is anybody in this room going to become a billionaire? And they're like, maybe, but probably not too realistic, And then the millionaire number comes up. Okay, guys, what are the odds of becoming a millionaire? And they're like, pretty good. Pretty good. Everybody in that room has a chance to become a millionaire. There's no doubt about it. Okay. And then we go on to discuss the pitfalls that you could, have that would prevent you from becoming one and so forth. But after we talk about, becoming a millionaire and just kind of the concept of it, then we automatically jump into something that's super important and is what is actually the topic of today's podcast. And that is the psychology behind money. Okay. So what do I mean by the psychology of money? Well, in doing some research for this podcast, what I've discovered is there's many definitions of the psychology of money. Okay. Some definitions focus on the beliefs, some focus on the behaviors with money, and some focus on the emotions. So today what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to discuss all of those things and just kind of break it down a little bit into some easy to understand categories. Okay. So let's talk about the beliefs and the emotions behind the psychology of money. And I'm going to talk about my personal experience because this is what I share with the kids. Okay. When I was younger, my parents divorced when I was 10 years old. Okay. So I would live with my mom, for 2 weeks, and then every other weekend I'd go visit my dad, and he would keep us for the weekends and so forth. And when you come from a separated household, and I'm only relying on personal experience, but you do hear about money conversations when you hear your parents talk. A mother trying to raise 3 kids on child support, sometimes there would be like, kids, we just don't have the money, for those $100 pair of shoes. Or, a big thing for us is we would go out and we'd budget $20 a week to go out and have dinner. The 4 of us would go to Wendy's or something and get burgers. Okay. And then, you hear my dad, and my mom and my dad had sometimes opposing opinions like, I'm giving you enough. And you'd hear things like, I'm not giving you enough. And I think that's just a relationship thing. It's not a big deal. But as a child, as you're listening to it, and whatever your own situation is, you're going to start getting some beliefs in your head about money. Is money really always going to be a problem? Or is money going to be the savior for everything? Okay. So at some point in people's lives, they have to come up with their own realization about what money is, what money can do, and actually change your thoughts towards money. Okay. If you want to be a person who kind of struggles their whole life, always think money is going to be difficult. Okay. There's never going to be enough money for going out, and there's never going to be enough money for this, and I'm going to have debt for this and so forth. You can change your beliefs towards money. And my personal opinion is it starts at a pretty early age. So I stood up in front of that classroom of kids, and I'm like, starting today, your beliefs towards money change, no matter what it is. If you're making good money now and you love that idea, make more. Make more money. If you're sitting here and I'm telling them how much money they need to save per month to become a millionaire, and one girl goes, that's it? And I'm like, that's the right way to think right there. That's the right way to think right there. You can do this. You can do this. And you could see the light coming on in some of these kids' faces like, I can do that.
Right.
I'm not stuck in my current position for the rest of my life.
Right.
When you're 16, 17, 18, you can't make your own decisions legally.
Right.
But you can make some emotional decisions legally, and that's a good thing. So how do you change those beliefs?
Yeah, your beliefs come from the environment you grew up in, which is what you're describing, and that can be an environment of scarcity, or it can be an environment of abundance. That's going to influence you on how things start out, but it can also be Was there never any talk about money, or was there always talk about money? All of those things are growing in youth as they watch. I mean, they do pay attention, whether you realize it or not. They are paying attention, and that can be good and that can be bad.
100%. So as a potential young adult listening to this, your situation, you will control your own environment at some point. If you're a parent right now with kids, think about it. Are you talking openly about money with your kids or in front of your kids? Is it always a negative discussion?
Right.
Is it always a positive
spin,
discussion?
Negative spin.
Yep. So how do you change those beliefs? It starts with yourself. It starts in your own brain. You have to understand that money is not necessarily evil. Money can do a lot of wonderful things. Okay. And like I said, I took great pride in talking to these kids because you could see it. You could actually see some of them changing their thought process towards it. It was fantastic. Okay. What about the emotions behind money? What about it? Joe, what do you think?
Well, I don't really have a whole lot to say about it other than, whether, growing up you didn't have any. Were you afraid because you put so much emphasis on it, like it's something that's needed? Were you raised in a home that, whether it's, as a Christian, you put your hope in other things other than money, and so it might not affect you as much. I don't know.
Yeah.
The emotions. I mean, I grew up in a home where I would say there was generally a scarcity feel to things. My mother was a wonderful woman who made lots out of little, and grew up during the Depression era. Both my mom and dad grew up during the Depression era, and they just had a mindset of, you save. You are really planning for that bad time to come, and it might not come, but man, we're going to make the best of what little bit we have, and that's an influencer. I mean, that's not necessarily a positive influencer. I mean, it can cause you to be too tight-fisted, basically, because that's what you grew up with, but that can modify over time too. As you learn more, as you experience other people, you can move off of your childhood roots, I guess.
And that's,
we grew up in inner city of Minneapolis, and Dad had a great job and wasn't educated, but came home one day, and he worked at a company that they did pipes for oil drilling, and he showed up at work and they said, sorry, we're not a company any longer. So this is early 80s, wasn't educated. We fell in some tough times. But at the time, it seemed in the area that we were living, everyone was like that. So we were middle class and we always had food, but we knew that we weren't going to McDonald's anytime soon. And what's funny to think about that is my kids, if we said, hey, we're going to McDonald's, would probably go, oh, Dad, do we really have to go to McDonald's? But it's like, I remember as a kid, that was like, and if we did go to McDonald's once a year, it was like, we're getting 10 hamburgers and waters and, 3 large fries that we're all going to split. And that was still huge for us. But what was crazy is that that's just the community that we lived at. Everyone lived like that. And so it wasn't any different for us, even though we just knew we weren't going to get new stuff. And,
I think that's an important point too. You touch on is not just your family, but what your community. So if you're in the mindset of wow, everybody around me, everybody else in my neighborhood, they have all of this and I don't have any of it. That's hard on a kid. Or it can be the other. It can be any of the above, basically. But we are really a function of our environment to a large degree. A lot of that's family, but then as you get in school age, there's comparisons going on between those first graders, I'm sure, on who's got the coolest shoes, Certainly isn't me.
it's not my kids.
no, wasn't my kids. They had shoes.
That's right.
That was a good starting point. That's right. So the emotions behind money, I always kind of joke that my job's about 80% psychologist and about 20% financial advisor, because when people come into the office and they talk to Todd and I, they spill their emotions. We hear a lot of different things about people. The purpose behind that is for us to come up with a solution for it. But the other important thing for us is to listen, because we're not going to come up with the right solution unless we're listening to those emotions as they come out. So we've kind of broken up the emotional part into 4 different parts, okay? Fear. Fear of money. Yeah, fear of money is a real thing, okay? Fear of lack of money is probably the most powerful driving force. People are scared. People come in and they're like, oh my God, I don't have enough money to retire. Everybody's got enough money to retire. It just depends on what type of lifestyle you want, okay? There's very few people that we ever meet with that say, you're going to be working for the rest of your life, okay? It does happen, but it's just not that often. Guilt and shame. That's the next 2. We're going to kind of combine those together. But, I'll talk to people, and they truly feel it in their soul that they're in the position that they're in. They feel guilty about the fact that they didn't save enough, or they they understand they have to talk to people about it, and there's shame involved in that for them. Folks, that's totally normal, okay? But you have people like Todd and I who are sitting out there wanting to help you, and we don't judge, and people don't judge. Some people do, we don't. So it's an important, natural, just totally normal thing to feel the guilt and the shame, all right? And of course, the big one, envy. Envy. And Todd just kind of touched upon it, oh, I don't have the same shoes that he's got,
Right.
or I don't drive the same car that they got, and I don't live in the same neighborhood that they do, all right?
Keeping up with the Joneses theory, basically.
Keeping up with the Joneses.
And like Dave, we refer to Dave Ramsey a lot, but keeping up with the Joneses. But what you don't realize is the Joneses are broke. Everything they're showing you and you see drive by is all financed, and they're living beyond their means.
Rachel Ray, who's Dave Ramsey's daughter, and we're going to actually talk a little bit
Rachel
about her.
Cruz, yeah.
I'm sorry, Rachel Cruz. Rachel
Ray.
Ray is the cook.
Cook, yes.
Wow.
Sorry, Rachel, if the slim chance of you listening to this, I referred to you as the wrong Rachel. Rachel Cruz, Dave Ramsey's daughter, there's a video or something about where you got a young couple standing in the driveway of their nice house with a new truck, and then the next scene is them sitting at the table looking at their bills going overdue, things like that. So, yeah, keeping up with the Joneses is definitely a problem. I believe envy is one of the 7 deadly sins. Is that correct? So,
I think it is, yeah.
Yep. So keep that in mind, folks. These emotions that you're feeling, they all start to change the minute you say they're going to start to change. Okay? It's like losing weight. Getting out of debt, becoming more financially responsible is like losing weight. It's only you who's going to do it. So let's start today, not wait till tomorrow. Okay. The behavior behind the psychology of money. Let's talk about self-awareness, okay? And let's revert it back right now to the losing weight. If I look at myself in the mirror this morning and I'm like, ugh, I do not look good. I do not like what I'm seeing here, okay? How does that change if I don't do something about it? If I'm a real jerk to everybody around me and I'm starting to get the awareness of that, how does that change if I'm not the one changing it? Okay? If I've got a problem with money, how does that change unless I'm the one doing it? So self-awareness is an incredible tool that you can use. And, some of us in our business experiences, we've taken psychological profiles and things like that. And, if you have an opportunity to take one, I would probably encourage it because it's kind of neat to figure out what it does. The first one I ever took was for a management position with a former insurance company. And my big thing was I don't trust people, So how do I suddenly change that? That's a big thing. I'm in a job where I want people to trust me, but I don't trust people. So self-awareness is an incredibly valuable tool. How does your mind work when you're thinking about this? Is it always I'm right no matter what I do? Or are you listening to people? Are you taking that feedback? Everything's got to change. And like I said, it starts with you. What are your beliefs and emotions? Everyone's different. That's a huge tool when it comes to that self-awareness part. All right, now, speaking of the correct Rachel this time, Rachel Cruz online had 4 ways psychology affects your money. And Todd actually brought the book that Rachel wrote today with him. So we're going to kind of talk about the 4 ways psychology affects your money. And Rachel, thank you so much for putting this out there for the people to see. It's very powerful stuff, and we always encourage people to read the Ramsey material because we just think it's fantastic stuff. But she categorizes people in different ways. Spender versus saver. spender versus saver. So this is obviously in a relationship where you got a couple of people, okay? But what they found is that in a lot of relationships, you have somebody who's very dedicated to the saving, and you got people who are very dedicated to the spending.
That can cause conflict.
It causes huge conflicts in some cases. You know, heard a story one time about some friends. The husband went out and just bought a 4-wheeler. You know, or we have somebody sitting here. Actually, I'm sorry, Joe, I'm not throwing you under the bus, but
thanks a lot.
in a previous podcast,
Somebody, huh?
no. Somebody bought a motorcycle in the previous podcast.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Without discussing it. You know, so
That one might be a good one to have a rule on. Like,
Oh, there was a few rules that was established.
Yeah. You're free to spend up to
You can go to McDonald's.
$100 without consulting the other. But
Well, so that
man,
means I have
it's
to
beyond
get,
that.
to get gas for my truck.
That's
I have
true.
to ask
That's
them.
true. You'd have to call. You'd have to get
You
approval.
broke the rule.
Yeah.
You went
That's
over the
true.
$100. The second category of people is nerd versus free spirit. Todd, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, I'll talk about nerds because I do understand them, being one myself. And I freely admit it. I have been one to keep track of things that nobody else keeps track of on a spreadsheet for a long time, like when spreadsheets were still paper and pencil. And I just, it a little bit brings comfort to kind of keep track of things. It's an organization kind of thing. It isn't necessarily a saving kind of thing. It's just kind of like, I guess that I went into the right profession, I guess, because I keep track of things. But yeah, the nerd in the family is going to be the one who's going to know where every dime is spent and who did it and what date they did it on. It can be very non-fun for the free spirit. The free spirit is going to want to be able to just kind of live life and do things that are fun on impulse a little bit or without so much thinking about each and everything. And that can create conflict as well.
It sure can. So that kind of relates back to a previous podcast we did on relationships and money.
Yeah.
You know, it's a team effort, folks. It's a team effort. And if you do have a free spirit in the family, them sitting down to listen to the nerd talk about the spreadsheet is going to
Be
physically
painful.
be
Painful for them.
painful for them. But if you want the success, if you want the psychology to change, you have to understand that the free spirit's going to have to come up to the point of the nerd a little bit, and the nerd's going to have to come down and not be so hard on the free spirit.
That's right.
Okay, come up with that good compromise. Safety versus status. What does that mean? Safety versus status. Here's what I think of that. Safety people are almost like that unknown millionaire next door. You know, these are people who you would really never know have even any money. Okay? And then the status people are the ones who are very comfortable flaunting their wealth. They're the ones driving the fancy cars, wearing the fancy jewelry, you know, taking the luxurious vacations and so forth.
And it may not be wealth that they're
It may not be wealth.
showing you.
Exactly.
It might be debt that they're showing you.
Exactly right.
But it comes across as
Look at those
I'm
people.
doing well.
Look at those people. They got all the toys. I'm totally envious of them. Back to the emotions behind the money. So, safety versus status. There's definitely, you know, it's going to tie probably back into the spender versus saver and the nerd versus the free spirit. You know, the nerd, the saver, they're going to want that safety status in their life. It makes them feel good knowing they go to bed at night with a certain dollar amount sitting in their checking account. Where on the other hand, the status person's like, I am so happy to get into my new car, my brand new car today, and drive around. And you know, so once again, it's all relating back to that relationship, your thoughts on what's good for your family, and so forth. And then we've kind of already touched upon the fourth thing, which is your family and your childhood. You know, I have a firm belief that your emotions and your psychology towards money are created at a very young age. It has to do with your environment, whether it's your family, your friends, the town you grow up in, the school you go to, what your first job is, who you're listening to, who your mentors are, and so forth. So, you know, the impact of money, the impact of thoughts of money can really direct what your entire life's going to look like if you're not willing to make a change towards something that you think is positive. Now, I say you think is positive because, once again, I referred back to earlier when I say everybody is different when it comes to the beliefs and the emotions behind money. Everyone is different. All right, Joe, you're thinking about things differently than I am. Todd, you're thinking about things differently than I am. Okay. Bottom line is what we're trying to do is we're all trying to get to a goal that meets our personal needs. Okay. And if that personal goal is to become, worth $10 million, fantastic. Okay. Go for it. If my personal goal is to retire at age 55 or 60 years old and I want X number of dollars in retirement, where am I going to get it from? Good. Go for it. If you wake up in the morning thanking the good Lord for having another breath of air in your lungs and you're happy with where you're at in life, that is perfect. Okay? But bottom line is don't be afraid to change your thoughts on money. Don't be afraid to change the psychology, the psychological impact of money in your brain. Okay? No different than losing weight. No different than getting out of debt. No different than working towards a goal. Whatever it is, be willing to change it.
And whether we like it or not, there are a lot of ways that we're marketed to that are trying to change our psychology about money. I grew up in a scarcity family. Okay, so not a free spender by any means, and can be criticized about that and laughed at about that. And I can laugh about it myself because I kind of agree with it. But you're marketed to constantly on where you should be spending money. It's not just your neighbors driving with the new car. It's all the ads you see on TV. It's a combination, and it's years of seeing this that, new is better, shiny is better, bigger is better, and all of that is slowly over time also changing your psychology about money. Even if you had a different childhood rut, it can change for the good over time, or it can change for the bad over time, and you may not know that you're actually changing, but it changes.
Mm-hmm. So I think, as we kind of recap the show, the three of us grew up in different households. Todd grew up in northern Minnesota. Joe grows up in Minneapolis area. I grew up in southeast Iowa. I would say none of us came from any sort of wealth whatsoever, okay? But I think the one thing that we can take away from it is, our parents showed us great love. Mm-hmm. Our parents installed an unbelievable work ethic into us. Our parents were brave enough to tell us no when they couldn't do something, okay? I'm not sure that happens a lot nowadays. I think it's just easier to swipe the credit card and make sure the kid says yes and gets the whatever they want. So, I would say on behalf of all of us, thank you to our parents, because if the one thing they gave us besides the love was the work ethic, that then allows us to get to where we are in this point in our lives. So it's pretty fantastic. So, all right. So to close the show, just to kind of recap, the psychology of money is such a powerful topic. We could probably sit here and talk for another hour on it, but in order to get where you want to go, you may really need to dig into yourself. All problems in life start with digging into yourself. You may be forced to change your behavior to reach whatever goal you desire to achieve. Everyone is different. We've said that before. Everyone is different. Everyone has different set of goals. We all come from different childhoods and we have different beliefs. We would love to have the discussion with you and help you in any way we can. That's what we do. Like I said, we listen, and then we come up with a solution. So our heartfelt thanks goes out to all of you today for listening. A special thanks to Joe Jolan from Jolan Media and Todd Slatke for joining us today and providing their amazing feedback and information. We always want to hear from you. Please reach out to us by either giving us a call at 319-576-2264 or visiting our website at www.greatriverinvestments.com. Go to the Contact Us section of the site. One of us will be in touch with you shortly to discuss our next steps together. So thank you all very much for listening. Have a great day and talk to you soon.